Hi guys, and welcome to a battle between the mighty Shetland Apache in charge of the Dawi up against Inticity in charge of the evil and cunning Dark Elves. Should be a very fun match, so let's hop in and check out the build here. So we're going to slow it down a little bit while we go through, and what you see here is a master of the Dawi defensive formation right here. You see a lot of people bunch up, myself included, which can work quite well. It's a lot easier to micro, but this super wide formation can be very, very effective. So in the front line, in two columns, in fact, we have some miners. This, I suppose, will make targets trying to shoot them have a bit of a smaller target to aim at. Her bolt throws will tear down these lines, doing massive damage. But we have those guys leading the charge in the front line, backed up by 3 units of Iron Drakes. These guys are the flamethrower variety here, coming in here and doing some decent anti-infantry utility. Also, you know, pretty damn tough themselves, coming in with a whopping 125 armor. In the second line, we have some miners with blasting charges, including the Regiment of Renown version, the Ekrund miners. Don't get to see these guys too often, but they do come with some extra charges, and they will help thin out any Dark Elf infantry. Also supported here in the centre pocket by some Dwarf warriors. Now, in the third line, you'll notice there is so many lines to this build. We do have a couple of units of Thunderers, flanked either side by Dawi warriors. As you get more and more into the mix of this build, it is getting tougher and tougher. 3 units of Thunderers come behind those guys, before being flanked once again by a couple of Dwarf warriors and 2 Iron Drakes with Troll Hammer torpedoes in the back line. This army is going to be led by a mighty Rune Lord here, coming in with just the Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin. Apart from that, pretty cheap and cheerful guy, going to be there mainly for their leadership. So overall, a massive onion build here. You're going to have to try and hack your way through so many troops to hop on top of these gunners, and even if you isolate one section of this build, you're simply going to get crossfired by all the Thunderers and Troll Hammers. However, it looks like Inticity is kind of prepared for this, and he's got a very nice deployment himself. So he's using the trees to his advantage. On the flanks, it looks like he has Dark Riders for the most part, some even hiding all the way in the distance over there. And on this right-hand flank of his formation, we do have Slaacious Harvesters, Regiment Round Doomfire Warlocks coming in with a beautiful Soul Stealer and Word of Pain. Great utility from those guys. We have some Black Ark Corsairs supporting Sisters of Slaughter. These little naked ladies will do actually pretty decent damage up against most Dawi infantry, but they're really susceptible to crossbow fire and so forth. Now, on the left-hand flank, it looks like we have a similar contingent as well. This time, 2 units of Black Ark Corsairs, some Sisters of Slaughter supporting some Dark Riders. And then in the centre, we have 2 Reaper Bolt Throwers. These are going to do massive damage to this Dawi force, really trying to entice them in. They've got some pretty good targets in the Iron Drakes, especially those Troll Hammer torpedoes, but it is, again, going to be quite tough, as it's a really large Dawi build in general. In fact, coming in there with 1,065 Dwarfs armed to the teeth, with a couple of units of Dark Shards behind as well, 3 in fact. And where is his lordship? I believe it is Malekith riding dirty on his very funky and probably not very practical chariot, but who cares about practicability when you look this badass. He is a shoulder or sword swung over his shoulder there, looking very confident indeed. Just bringing Gaze of Malice, Soul Stealer and Power of Darkness. Without further ado, let's get this underway. Chariots are notoriously good up against the Dawi, but it's going to be a real struggle to get in here, as previously stated. Say he does pop in here, wants to shut down these Iron Drakes and this unit of Thunderers. He then has to contest with all these units backing them up. Going to be doing some awesome damage. Bolt throws do come in, get some decent shots on the miners, and you see the blood kind of leaving trails where fallen Dawi have unfortunately been slain. It looks like the Dark Elves now trying to get a nice wrap and surround as much as possible, but this is a huge build to try and get around one massive roadblock slowly marching forward. It'll be interesting to see how Inticity does use Malekith here, seeing if he's going to be trying to come in for any early attacks, which is what perfectly you want to happen, but unfortunately it's going to be pretty tough up against this build. Looks like the bolt throwers are trying to target down the Iron Drakes. Apologies for the sirens in the background. Looks like we have an ambulance going by. And there it goes into the distance. So Malekith does come charging and runs over a few Iron Drakes, but look at the damage he takes in return for one simple charge. Looks like the bolt throwers are really punishing these guys now. A couple of shots from the Thunderers come in, and he's already lost almost a quarter health. Looks like he is going to be coming back in with a Soul Stealer though, whilst also running over some of these miners in the front line. Soul Stealer not going to do fantastic work up against Dawi in general, but still is going to keep Malekith topped up on health. Master Rune of Wrath and Ruin coming in though, allowing Thunderers to get some decent shots, and he's almost down to half health. Really nice burst damage coming from the Dawi, but a Gaze of Malice in a little bit of vengeance there on some Dwarf Warriors, as the Dark Elves, you can see, are getting a very nice surround now. Dark Riders lurk in the back lines. Probably trying to hop on top of the Warhammer torpedoes wouldn't be a bad shout. In the front line, Black Ark Corsairs are slowly getting engaged with the Ekrund miners, but taking huge blasting charges to the face, and Iron Drakes are now turning about face and unleashing a torrent of ammunition into those Black Ark Corsairs. Dark Riders, nice and thread of the needle here through two lines of Dwarf Warriors, hop on top of some Thunderers, but in retaliation, Trollhammer torpedoes and another 2 units are going to be firing, and these Dark Riders just get obliterated. It is allowing tiny bit of space in the back for Antiquity to come in with another couple of units of these guys, but Iron Drakes are very, very tanky. They're happy to hold the line here and allow the Thunderers to turn around and unleash volley after volley into these Dark Riders. You can see these guys are breaking without really doing too much damage. It does keep the Iron Drakes from firing for a short period of time, but they're fine, and they'll be back into the action. Front line is being heavily pressured now. Dark Shards did manage to push forwards, but they're taking some blasting charges for their efforts up against miners. They're trying to get in here and support taking down the Thunderers and Iron Drakes, and some of the Dwarf units are starting to get pretty beat up and wavering. However, the Dark Elves, most of their attacks are kind of slowly stalling out and then fading. Malekith doing some decent cycle charging in the front line, up to 44 kills, but he is very low health-wise himself. And the Slashes Harvesters do come flying in now, and he decided to go after the Thunderers, which I think is a much better pick than going after the Iron Drakes. Iron Drakes are just too tanky to take down in a quick burst, and he's taking so much Overwatch fire from the Thunderers, he needs to shut these guys down first. Let's have a quick look and see how the Reaper bolt throws are doing, up to 41 and 43 kills respectively, doing decent work, and the backline has managed to be stabilised. Dark Shards now finally doing some decent damage on miners, and you can see a lot of the Dawi in the front line are starting to break, and the formation is slowly starting to collapse in itself. Malekith trying his best to help out his troops and shut down these Thunderers. Does pop in the back, but another Master Rune of Wrath and Rune has popped on him, minusing his speed by 72%, and he is in a conclave of firing here. It looks like the combination of Thunderers and Trollhammer torpedoes do bring down the edgiest Dark Elf of them all, and with that, the Dark Elves are really going to struggle here. Some Iron Drakes flame throwing their way back into some Dark Riders, once again supporting their Iron Drake brethren. And wherever Antiquity strikes, there is always more Dwarfs to come in, help defend, and Thunderers to constantly fire. This pocket of Thunderers here, and has been active most of the game, up to 15 kills each on quite high tier troops. Dwarf Warriors trying their best here as well to assist the Iron Drakes, and they've just got so much armour, the Dark Riders really aren't having enough of an impact here. Reaper bolt throws though have managed to fire consistently here, and that is one disadvantage of this type of build, not bringing cannons and so forth. They are going to lose the artillery game, and if someone does bring Reaper bolt throws, they're guaranteed value. But apart from that, the battle is going fairly well for the Dawi. Balanced power is now starting to reflect that. Dwarf Warriors once again cutting down Doomfire Warlocks as the Iron Drakes unleash some flaming shots into these Dark Shards, helping burn them and discourage them as much as possible, as the Rune Lord does go in with a massive karate kick there, flinging some of these Dark Shards to the ground. In the distance, we have a lot of Dwarf Warriors who are rallying and coming back to the fray. Now they see the battle is going a little bit better for them. Sisters of Slaughter as well, or sorry, not Sisters of Slaughter, these, oh no they are. Trying their best to hunt down Thunderers and so forth, but yeah, I think the game was pretty much over at that point. Not sure if the Dark Elves broke or Antiquity threw in the towel there, but either way, great game by both players. So let's go to the end stats here. So only a Pyrrhic victory in quite a tough matchup. Dark Elves can come in with a ton of armor piercing damage. Now Antiquity is a very, very good player. Recently appeared quite a lot in the tournament scene, and I've had some great games up against him in the past as well. And he is one of the best defensive players I have seen, so I expected the Reaper bolt throws to do some pretty decent work, and 71 and 58 kills, mainly on Iron Drakes, is some really good value. But the problem he came up against here was Shetland is so disgustingly good with the Dawi. Massive wide force, and just such good value from pretty much all his ranged troops. This unit only 7 kills and this one 4, but apart from that, 22, 38, 55 and so on and so on. Huge damage tearing through the mobile elements of the Dark Elf forces, and including Malekith himself. He got 69 kills, still got some okay value, but really struggled to break down the lines. Now, one thing I normally recommend to newer players is that you do not bring too many ranged units, but as, you know, that rule there's a sort of one or two kind of exceptions, and one of those is when your name is Shetland Apache, bringing 10 ranged units here and only defending it with 10 combat troops, but he was willing to sacrifice some of the Iron Drakes into combat, knowing they would hold the line, that really tough 125 armor, keeping them in action long enough for the rest of the forces simply to turn around face and annihilate whatever they were holding up. So real masterful Dawi play there. I highly recommend checking out Shetland Apache and A-Move Hacker in the future if you do want to see some good Dawi play, if you're trying to learn them and so forth. Anyway guys, I hope you did enjoy this very cool battle. Big thank you to Shetland for sending this one in. If you did enjoy, please do consider giving the video a big old thumbs up. Really helps out the channel. And if this is the type of content you're into, feel free to hit that subscribe button and stick around. One last thing, I do have a Patreon account just down below in the description and a Discord as well. If you want to send me replays, feel free to join a really cool community we have going on and drop them in the replay little channel down there. Anyway guys, until next time, peace, and stay awesome.